Hi everyone, it's Anne from the I Thought I Knew How podcast. I wanted to put together a quick video for those of you who will be joining myself and Jana of the Purl Together podcast for the knit along that we will be hosting on January 1st, 2020 for any of the Harriet's collection patterns, which you can find at mrimakers.com. The proceeds of which go to supporting the Shetland MRI Scanner Appeal, which is a charity that is working to get a MRI scanner for the people of the Shetland Islands. All of that said, I know that some of you are very excited to get your yarn ordered, and so I wanted to give you some insight and some things to think about when it comes to choosing your yarn for the projects that are listed at mrimakers.com. So the yarn that is needed for the projects is a fingering weight yarn. You are going to want to use wool because it is Fair Isle. Fair Isle will stick together better. It will hold its stitch definition better if you use a wool. So this is not a time to pull out your stash acrylic or go for remainder sock yarn with a bunch of nylon in it. We want proper wool yarn as we do these projects. The yarn that is recommended in the pattern is Shetland yarn, and it is produced by a couple of companies that are based on Shetland. So one of them is the Jamiesons of Shetland, which is the Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift, and the other recommended yarn is by Jamieson and Smith. My lights are very bright. Where can I get you there? There we go. Jamieson and Smith. That's off camera, Anne. Come on. They are both fingering weight. They are both lovely to work with. They are both the traditional choice for Fair Isle knitting. It is the yarn that was available when Fair Isle was being developed, and it's a great yarn to use because it's a grippy style wool. And a lot of times, Fair Isle knitting will require you to cut it in some way. So you want a grippy wool that is going to hold its position when you cut it and not unravel. Now, if you decide to do the cowl, you will need to steek your yarn. So if you are doing the cowl, I highly recommend that you stick with the Shetland wool that's recommended in the pattern. For the rest of us, this is a great yarn. I really love the Shetland wool, and I strongly recommend that you just go ahead and use it. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of it to just use the Shetland wool, but there are reasons to opt for something else, and we'll get into those as the video goes on. But I want to show you some of the things that I've knit from the Harriet's collection using the Shetland wool, and I'll talk to you about why it's a great yarn. So as you can see, it gives you a very good stitch definition for Shetland wool, for Fair Isle knitting. It also creates a very sleek, smooth fabric. So this is a great outerwear wool. When I was on Shetland, I saw women wearing gorgeous sweaters that had, when you talked to them about it, you found out the sweater was knit by their mother 50 years ago, and they've been wearing it since then. So it's a very durable wool as well. When you first get your Shetland wool, it has, I don't know if you can hear that, it has a bit of a crunch to it. And that has to do with the wool itself. But it also is in part because of some of the oil that's left in the milling process. When you are knitting with this, you might have some regrets at first if it's your first time knitting with either of these wools, because it doesn't feel as soft and sleek as it will once it's been blocked. This is really a wool that changes quite a bit once it's been blocked. In fact, when you first immerse it in the warm water bath for blocking purposes, you are going to get a very cloudy water as a result because of all the oils that are going to come off of that. And that's not the lanolin, that's the oil that is used in the spinning process. And then once it has been washed and the water's been pressed out and it's dried in position, it actually is quite a comfortable yarn. I know a lot of people are very comfortable wearing Shetland yarn against the skin. So that is an option. So these are the mittens that I keep showing you. So that's one option for the pattern that you can pick for the knit along. I also did the headband in Shetland wool, and of course that one is reversible, so you get 2 looks. If you have done Fair Isle before, I think either of these would be perfect for you to move on to. The headband is probably good for a beginner as well. And then the hat. I actually think that the hat is the best project for someone who is a true beginner to Fair Isle. You will work some decreases in the crown. Get that in the picture. Isn't that a lovely crown? But for the most part, you're just knitting in the round. You're not having to cut anything or splice anything together. You're just knitting a hat. So I think this is a great first timer project. So that's the traditional recommended yarn by the pattern. And as I said, if you're doing the cowl, you're definitely going to want to use a Shetland wool. The other yarn I want to tell you about is Morehouse Farm Merino 2-ply. And I was just showing you some finished objects there. So I'll show you my finished objects that I've knit from this real quick. So this is a 2-color version of the hat that I knit using the Morehouse 2-ply. This is the blackberry and the natural. And I just did all the background stitches in the blackberry and all the pattern stitches in the natural. And then I have here, this is a 6-color version of the hat pattern using different natural shades of the Morehouse Merino, and then this is the blackberry there. Okay, so different shades of brown. Okay, and I'll show you a few more in just a minute. I want to talk to you about the Morehouse yarn though. Morehouse Merino. Okay, it is a woolen spun yarn, and it's slightly thicker than the Shetland yarn. You can knit it to gauge though. It's not a problem to knit it to the recommended gauge. It's that extra loftiness that you get from the woolen spun. And that extra loftiness is going to make it the warmest option of the 3 that I'm going to tell you about. So I was just out. We had a major snowstorm over the last 2 days, and this is the hat that I had on my head when I was out for several hours twice the first day of snow, and then for 5 hours today because we got another 12 inches overnight. And this kept me roasty toasty warm. There was no wind getting through it because it's extra lofty, and so your stitches are a little tighter. Also, because it's a woolen spun, this yarn is a little more forgiving for first timers. It tends to sort of fill in better between the stitches, I was noticing. And so the stitch definition, when you are just learning, tends to be a bit more uniform looking. So if you are looking for something that, you know, is going to be a bit more forgiving than a woolen spun yarn is that, and I would recommend the Morehouse Merino. The other thing about the Morehouse Merino is if you would like to knit for someone who says that they cannot wear wool, they maybe have not tried merino wool before. It is one of the softest of the wools out there, and a lot of people who claim that they cannot wear wool actually do just fine with merino. These also make excellent the Morehouse Merino also is an excellent yarn for people who have skin sensitivities or perhaps have lost their hair due to chemo. It is an exceptionally soft yarn. And so if you're looking for something very, very soft and delicious to work with, I recommend the Morehouse Farm yarn for that. This is actually one of my favorite yarns, hands down, to use. I have over here a few more projects that I made from them. Actually, I'm missing my fingerless gloves, but I also did a 2-tone fingerless glove to match the hat. And this is my version of the cowl. The cowl pattern, this is one side of it, this lower, below this line. And then I am a little over halfway with the second side. So this will this will fold on this line and become the inside of that cowl, similar to the headband, but that's the inside pattern there. So I actually am not, I have altered the pattern a little bit so that this cowl will not be cut. I am doing a version according to the pattern using the Jamieson and Smith traditional colors that I put aside and I'm going to pick up again when we start the knit along. And so I will be cutting that one and we will work on that together. Anyone who's doing a cowl will see about maybe having a steek along online and we can all cut our knitting together. But this one's going to stay as one piece and just be a tubular cowl. And so for that reason, I went ahead and used the Morehouse Merino for that. Now you could use the Morehouse Merino if you intend to steek it. You just need to put a little bit more prep work into your steek before you cut. So that's a second option. Our third option is Ashcroft Makers. So Ashcroft Makers is based in, there you go. Ashcroft Makers is based in Scotland, but she ships anywhere. She uses natural dyes to dye a superwash blue-faced Leicester base yarn. So with the Jamieson and Smith, the Jamiesons of Shetland, and the Morehouse Merino, those all need to be hand washed. So if you are going to be knitting this project for a gift for someone who you can't trust to remember to wash it by hand, or if you just want the ease and convenience of being able to wash it in a washing machine yourself, this is a great yarn for that purpose. Blue-faced Leicester has a nice sheen to it, or a nice luster to it. You can see in the video that you get a nice glow or slight shine to it. It also has a long staple length, and these bases are worsted spun, so they're going to hold up really well on you. Finn at the Ashcroft Makers has been working on developing different colors for her line. And right now, if you are thinking about maybe doing your version of the Harriet's Collection projects in rose or pink tones, she has some beautiful options there to start with. But you can hop over to her site, ashcroftmakers.com, and take a look at what she has available. It's lovely, all naturally dyed wool. And again, it's sort of a nice compromise between warmth and loveliness and washability. So that is another recommendation for you. And Finn at Ashcroft Makers is going to be donating a project's worth of yarn for one of our knit along participants. And Erin at Morehouse Merino is going to be giving some gift certificates to some of our participants as well. So those are a couple things to keep in mind. You can go start drooling at their websites over the different yarns that you would like. The Morehouse Merino and the Shetland yarns both have a lot of different colors available, so you can go look through them. The Ashcroft, like I said, it has a more limited color range, but if you are thinking that blue's maybe not your thing, maybe you are more of a red or a pink person, she has some excellent colors there. Or if you're thinking about doing a 2-color version also, I'm a big fan of, she has a purple shade that right now escapes me, and then this is the olive, and I love them both. They're so beautiful. So I will put all the relevant links down below and let you know where you can find some of these yarns. And of course, if you are thinking about stash diving, I hope that this has given you some things to think about as far as what's your purpose in knitting this? Who's going to get this project? Is it going to be someone who's going to wash it because they forgot? And they're going to throw it in the washing machine someday. If you're afraid of that, then think superwash. Is it something that is for someone with skin sensitivities? You need to think about the softness factor of the yarn. Do you want to go full traditional with the Shetland wool? What is your purpose? What is your hope to accomplish with this project? and you're going to want to purchase your yarn accordingly. So I hope that that has given you enough to start thinking about some different brands of yarn. I will try and put together a video in the next day or two. We'll see how quickly I get that done, on how to pick colors for Fair Isle knitting in case you don't want to go with the official pattern colorway and you want to think a little bit outside of the box. I'll go over some steps that you can take on how to pick the right sorts of shades to work together to sort of recreate this look in colors that maybe fit your wardrobe a little better. So if you want more information about the Knit Along, then please join the Purl Together Ravelry Group or the I Thought I Knew How Ravelry Group. Though all the chatter is going to go on in the Purl Together group. So make sure for sure that you follow that. And then make sure that you follow Jana at Purl Together on YouTube. You can find I Thought I Knew How podcast also on YouTube or iTunes or any podcatcher that you have. Mine's an audio cast, hers is a video cast, and we're working together to bring you this knit along. If you are curious, also there's been a question about the hashtag. It's going to be hashtag Maakin for the MRI. So keep that in mind as you are planning. We would love to see the color and yarn choices that you are coming up with. And I look forward to meeting you and talking to you more as the knit along approaches and through January. Bye-bye.